Amazing revelation, lonely little girl's whisper unveils incredible bond with soldier and his K9. Mia sat on the swings, the metal creaking under her tiny frame as she rocked back and forth. Her mother was off working yet another shift, leaving Mia to navigate the world alone. The park was usually a temporary refuge, but today it felt even more desolate. She picked at the splintered wood of the swing, anxiety prickling her skin. Home felt like a distant land, often lacking the warmth she craved. Instead, Mia's heart echoed with a persistent loneliness that wound around her like a heavy cloak. Every day blurred into the next, ghosts of forgotten moments haunting her. Would her mother remember to call? Would she ever notice that Mia had worn the same faded dress for 2 days? When the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, she felt invisible. That feeling hit hardest when she watched families laugh, while she drifted unnoticed like a feather in the wind. The golden Labrador, with his wagging tail and knowing eyes, had become her only friend, listening to her stories that no one else cared to hear. On that particular day, a figure caught her eye, a man with a worn jacket and deep lines etched into his face, as if life had carved a tale of its own on his skin. Sergeant Jack. She'd seen him walking around the park, his K9 companion, Max, by his side. There was a quiet sadness in him that oddly mirrored her own. Mia wanted to reach out to him, yet hesitation gripped her shoulders. Why would a soldier want to listen to a mere child's worries? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She made her decision and walked over, heart racing, mind whirling with thoughts. Would he reject her? But something in Jack's eyes told her he harbored storms of his own. As Mia approached, sunlight flashed off Max's collar, and the dog bounded toward her, tail wagging, as if sensing her trepidation. "Hi," she said, her small voice barely a whisper. But Jack turned, and for the first time, he truly looked at her, those walls crumbling with a faint hint of recognition, an echo of longing for connection mirrored in his gaze. Suddenly, life swelled within her. She shared her stories, her struggles, the pain of being unheard, while Jack listened. Each laugh that escaped her lips tugged at the corners of his mouth and eased the tightness in his chest, even if just a little. But as they built this fragile bridge of understanding, an eviction notice tucked within the folds of his wallet weighed heavily on his mind, reminding him of the reality beckoning him back to a life he wished to escape. Mia, unable to see the storm brewing inside him, continued with her innocent chatter. But from within, Jack wrestled with waves of conflicting emotion. Should he embrace this unexpected bond, or would it become another thread in the tattered fabric of his life? Every smile from Mia was simultaneously a bomb and a dagger, forcing him to confront the ghosts of choices long made. Just when the laughter began to outweigh the silence, revelatory panic struck. They were distantly tethered by family histories intertwined like the branches of the trees above them. An old letter, discovered later, would serve as the intruder into their sanctuary. Would it blur the lines they'd drawn between themselves as the urgency of their lives beckoned? Jack felt the fear claw at him. Would he turn away from the now, or hold on to the whisper of possibility Mia had so effortlessly ignited? The crossroads loomed near. And the uncertainty of what awaited escalated within their souls, leaving nothing but an aching void of unanswered questions. Mia continued to share her stories, oblivious to the weight pressing down on Jack's heart. Her laughter hung in the air like a sweet melody, a stark contrast to the silent turmoil within him. As he gazed at her, a whirlwind of emotions spiraled inside: confusion, hope, and fear. Was it possible that this child could see beyond the facade he had built around himself? With each tale she spun, Mia offered a glimpse into a world that felt vibrant and alive. She shared tales of imaginary adventures with Max, the loyal watchdog that seemed to notice her loneliness. Her vivid imagination transported Jack momentarily away from the walls that confined him, yet the threat of his reality loomed ominously. He was 2 steps from an eviction, the ticket to a fresh start ripped from his hands, the responsibilities too heavy to carry alone anymore. Still, she kept talking, weaving a narrative that he desperately wanted to be a part of, if only for a moment longer. The park, with its rustling leaves and chirping birds, enveloped them in a serene bubble, oblivious to the struggles outside. Jack found himself leaning in, captivated not only by her words but also by the essence of hope sugary enough to drown the bitterness of his day-to-day existence. "Do you think soldiers get lonely, too?" Mia asked, her eyes twinkling with genuine curiosity. The question tugged at a raw nerve. Jack had wrestled with that very sentiment during his years of service. He felt isolated amid a crowd of comrades more focused on survival than building connections. "Yeah, they do," he replied, the words heavier than they should have been. "But sometimes, they have to push through it." "Push through?" she echoed, furrowing her brow. "But why not just talk to someone? Isn't that what friends are for?" Her innocent wisdom hit him like a dagger, carving away at the layers he built to shield himself. In that moment, he realized how many chances he let slip away, leaving him bound to a lifetime of regrets. What had deprived him of reaching for support, of being vulnerable? Within the simplicity of her question lay a profound truth: both of them had built walls to hide behind, but neither had shared it with another soul. As the sun slipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the park, Jack felt the insecurity of his choices thrumming through him. Should he share his own struggles with Mia? Would sharing the burdens he carried all these years be a form of strength or a foolish risk? He wondered if opening right now could solidify this fragile connection they had fostered, or if it would shatter everything, exposing raw scars he was not prepared to reveal. An abrupt sound interrupted his thoughts, as a crumpled piece of paper fell from his jacket pocket onto the grass, a forgotten eviction notice, its harsh reality contrasting sharply against the warmth of the moment. It was the bearer of bad news, a reminder that the fleeting comfort this moment provided couldn't shield him from the responsibilities waiting in the world beyond. Mia noticed the paper as it fluttered to the ground, curiosity brightening her gaze. "What's that?" The choice he faced hung in the air, a palpable tension. Should he ignore it, keep his burdens concealed? Or was now the time to lean into authenticity, to show her that vulnerability is not a weakness but a part of being truly human? Jack's mind raced, uncertainty clawing at the edges of his resolve as he contemplated revealing his truth to this little girl who had unknowingly done so much for him in such a short time. With his heart pounding, Jack made a decision he couldn't hide anymore. But was he ready to explore what sharing his feelings could mean for both of them? As he looked into Mia's hopeful eyes, everything seemed to hang in the balance. The moment of truth was upon him. He took a deep breath, his mind racing. Mia's innocent questioning had cracked the shell around his heart, peeling back the layers he thought were impenetrable. For the first time, vulnerability beckoned like a light in the darkness, urging him to step out of the shadows of denial. "It's an eviction notice," he said, forcing the words out, feeling their weight as they filled the air between them. "It means I have to move out of my apartment." Mia's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "What does that mean? You can't stay there?" "But where will you go?" Her question struck harder than he'd anticipated, cutting deeper into the fabric of his fears. The truth was he didn't know where he would go. He could barely navigate his job at the warehouse, let alone find new living arrangements. "I'll figure something out," he said, the conviction in his voice wavering. Mia, always perceptive, narrowed her eyes. "But you're sad," she stated bluntly, her honest gaze piercing through him, and in those moments, he felt the floodgates of emotion threatening to open. Jack was startled by the sharpness of her observations. It was unsettling, yet in a way, he appreciated how clearly she saw him. He had faked smiles and worn a mask of indifference, yet, here she was, able to strip it away with mere words. "Yeah, I guess I am," he admitted, the admission slipping from his lips before he could pull it back. "Some things are just hard to handle, you know. I didn't think I would end up here." Mia shuffled closer, her small hand reaching for his. "You don't have to be sad alone. You can talk to me. I'm good at listening." A part of him marveled at her offer. What did a child know about adult burdens? Yet, in her earnestness, he found an unexpected truth. It was liberating to share his pain with her, even if it was a minuscule part of it. Things didn't have to be tied up neatly, there was gravity in shared struggles. "What about you, Mia?" he asked, tilting the conversation to her. "Do you tell people when you're sad?" She considered his question, a furrow appearing on her brow. "Sometimes, but it's hard. When I feel lonely, I like to tell stories. Then I don't feel alone anymore." "Stories can help with loneliness," he echoed, surprised at the insight she shared, feeling a connection form, a bond rooted in both vulnerability and trust. As they remained there, the fading twilight cradled them in an intimacy that seemed to dissolve their individual battles, even if for a fleeting moment. The air was thick with the potential for revelation, yet, deep inside, Jack battled the voices of his insecurities, louder than ever. He needed to make a choice, not just about their conversation but also about how much of himself he was willing to reveal. With courage trembling at the edges of his mind, Jack decided he would share more, not just for himself but for Mia's understanding too. "You know, I'm scared I won't find a new place. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm enough." "Enough for what?" she asked, her curiosity genuine. "It just feels like everyone expects me to be strong, not to struggle." "Who cares what they think?" she shot back, the fire in her voice surprising him. "You can show them you're strong by being you. Strong is not just the outside." Her words reverberated within him, striking a chord of recognition. He had gravitated toward the notion that strength was synonymous with silence, but this was the kind of strength he needed to grasp. In that moment of clarity, Jack realized his journey had veered into uncharted territory. He didn't just need to face his eviction, he needed to confront the shadows within that would lead him to growth. Vulnerability should not just be uncovered, it could uplift both of them. "Maybe I could use more stories," he voiced quietly, allowing the hint of a smile to creep onto his lips. And just like that, he felt a shift. Here was Mia, a young girl standing resiliently alongside him, igniting a flame he'd thought extinguished. But as he leaned back into their exchange, the last remnants of daylight vanished, and with it, the looming uncertainty of tomorrow hung like a specter over them. Would he be able to truly face his fears and act on this new courage he'd felt? Jack's heart raced, knowing that the coming days would demand not only strength from him but also a commitment to the life he wanted to build, a life that wouldn't leave priorities behind. And so, with Mia's hand still clasped in his, the next challenge awaited just beyond the horizon, pushing him toward decisions that would shape their budding bond. The shadows deepened around them, whispering that the time for silence was ending. Could he truly embrace the vulnerability necessary for change? Morning light crept cautiously into the room, illuminating the chaos of his thoughts, a reminder of the eviction notice that still felt fresh and heavy in his gut. Jack awoke with a sense of urgency, thoughts spinning about his future. What if he woke up tomorrow without a place to call home? The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, demanding answers he struggled to provide. He sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes while stealing glances at the small pile of belongings crammed into the corners of the room. Each item was a piece of a fractured life, reminders of choices and circumstances that brought him to this moment. Just the day before, Mia's words echoed in his mind, a whispering challenge to turn vulnerability into strength. What if he started somewhere small, a task that would lead him into the unknown? The thought stirred something inside him. He could organize his belongings, take stock of what he had, and figure out what truly mattered. He didn't need to wait for permission or direction. He could initiate change. Standing, he brushed his fingers across the surface of a photograph resting on his bedside table. It captured a moment long past, a smiling younger self with a friend he'd lost touch with. "I'm not that guy anymore," he murmured. But what if he could reclaim pieces of that life? What if he could be that guy, just a little bit? The emptiness gnawing at him seemed to lessen as he began sorting through his belongings, item by item. Suddenly, the task felt monumental, almost a declaration of independence. The clutter was a reflection of his mind, a kaleidoscope of jumbled thoughts and emotions untangling as he created order. Every item sparked memories, each stirring a different emotion: nostalgia, regret, hope. He unearthed unopened letters from friends and notes he wrote but never sent. One note caught his eye: "You are enough." Did he still believe that? The words bore a weight he had dismissed too easily. Was it time he stopped ignoring what was necessary? As he made progress with the clutter, Jack realized he could initiate contact with a former friend who had always been a beacon of encouragement. Reaching out could be his next courageous step. He hesitated. What if his vulnerability was met with indifference? Yet, as Mia's words reverberated in his mind, he decided he couldn't afford that fear. The possibility of connection, of solidarity, was too valuable to ignore. Grabbing his phone, he opened a message draft, his fingers hovering over the keys. A shallow breath preceded each word as he tapped out an invitation for coffee. "It's been too long, and I could really use a friend." Sending it felt terrifying yet exhilarating, like leaping off a cliff into the security of the unseen waters below. Jack also knew the urgency of tackling his housing situation. The eviction wasn't going to wait. Maybe the next step was finding a temporary solution while he navigated these turbulent waters. He thumbed through local listings, feeling a mix of determination and anxiety swell within him. But a small spark ignited at the thought of possibilities. Finding a new place could bring forth new beginnings. He focused on the idea that moving meant progression, not just displacement. With renewed fervor, he dove deeper into the listings, each choice a potential rebirth. All of it was leading somewhere away from the weight of sadness and confusion, toward a future he could shape. The day carried on, punctuated by the warmth of Mia's assurance swirling in his mind. But amidst this flurry of action, doubt lurked in the periphery. What if he fell short again? What if he couldn't manage the burdens he was taking on? He paused, shaking the doubts loose as he realized he had also taken a risk by inviting change into his life through Mia's inspiration. When the sunlight began to wane and shadows returned, Jack found himself at the crossroads of uncertainty yet again. He had taken small steps, nurturing the fragile courage ignited in him. But then his phone buzzed, a response to his message. His heart quickened. What would they say? Would they join him in this journey of rediscovery? The moment lay thick with potential, yet Jack found himself grappling once more. Was he really prepared for what awaited? The answer, he knew, would unfold in time, pushing him toward decisions that could challenge who he thought he was, revealing deeper truths he couldn't yet fathom. He stared at the screen, pulse racing, ready for whatever came next. The screen lit up as he opened the message with trembling hands. It felt monumental, like opening the door to a room he hadn't entered in years. The reply was brief, yet it unfolded a canvas of possibilities. "I'd love to catch up. How about tomorrow at noon?" Jack's heart fluttered, a mix of relief and apprehension. There was no going back now, a reconnection had been set in motion, but what if he faced disappointment? He quickly shifted his gaze to the fading sunlight outside. It stained the sky a deep orange, a reminder of the time ticking away. Tomorrow would bring clarity and chance, two concepts he was desperately trying to grasp. The rhythmic clicking of his keyboard replaced thoughts of dread with a plan. He continued searching online. An inexpensive rental advertisement caught his eye, each detail promising something new. With each passing minute, the scope of change lay heavy on Jack's mind. He scanned over the rental listing again, adrenaline surging as he visualized each room not just as a space, but as a fresh start. The location seemed promising, within distance of the coffee shop where he would meet his friend. Reality started to weave into his plans, shaping a narrative he could believe in. After countless clicks and inquiries, he finally made the decision. He would reach out to the landlord, express interest, and schedule a viewing. The act itself felt empowering, breaking through the mundanity that had clouded his vision. He felt the atmosphere shift, the weight of his worries lightening as he composed the email, his confidence building like a foundation beneath him. He sent it off, staring intensely at the screen, waiting for a response that could further propel him forward. Could this really mark the beginning of something solid? The part of him that had craved stability was beginning to stir, longing for a place to hang aspirations and dreams, even if they were still fragile. As the evening wore on, he began mentally rehearsing what he would say when they met. The prospect of reconnecting bloomed new questions within him. What had changed? Who was he now compared to the person that had once drifted away from friendships? Would he be able to be honest without veiling his vulnerabilities in self-deprecating humor? The mundane decor of his current room faded into the background as he envisioned the coffee shop environment, a warm, inviting space filled with laughter, the aroma of brewing coffee mingling with the hope of rekindled friendship. But alongside the flutter of excitement was a creeping doubt. What if his friend noticed how out of sync he had become? Jack forced himself to confront this anxiety head-on. The interaction would test not just their relationship, but himself as well. His thoughts churned, unsure whether he could balance nostalgia with the present. If they delved into the unspoken pain of fading connections, the truth would require vulnerability, something he had avoided for far too long. The clock ticked closer to midnight, and he felt a restless energy pulsating through him. Tomorrow would be more than a mere coffee meeting, it would be an audition for the life he was trying to piece back together. His mind raced through scenarios, replaying the eventualities in a loop. Suddenly, his phone buzzed again. The landlord had replied. His heart skipped. The viewing was set for the following day, just hours before his planned meetup. The weight of uncertainty exchanged with the exhilarating possibility of moving forward. This intertwining of events felt almost serendipitous, a cosmic nudge towards growth. Jack found solace in the idea that each step he was taking was action in itself, propelling him out of his own despair. What if this was the antidote he needed to fend off the fear of failure? The fragments of his past and aspirations for the future seemed to blend together in a beautiful disorder, an exhilarating chaos that he was beginning to navigate. Determination coursed through him. He would approach both meetings with courage, armed with the wisdom he had gleaned from his afternoon of introspection. What truths would emerge when he saw his friend? Could he carve their relationship into something richer? And as he contemplated the initial viewing, he wondered, was he truly ready to embrace the unknown of a new space? The night closed in, heavy with anticipation, and Jack prepared for the torrent of emotions waiting to come. Tomorrow was not just about recovering old ties or facing new spaces, it was a step toward redefining who he could become. He lay back, eyes fixed on the ceiling, mentally bracing for a day that promised to challenge everything he thought he knew about himself. As sleep slowly pulled him under, the heaviness of impending revelations hung thick in the air. What awaited him when the sun rose again? As dawn broke, Jack stirred awake, the sunlight spilling through his window, awakening him slowly yet surely. He drew in a deep breath, feeling as if every inhalation filled him with a sense of purpose. Today was crucial, not just because of the viewings but for the revelations that loomed large on his horizon. He slid out of bed and moved through his morning routine with methodical precision. Each task, from brushing his teeth to pouring cereal, felt almost ritualistic, an opportunity to ground himself in the present. Yet there was this undercurrent of anticipation flowing just beneath the surface, swirling like a tempest, reminding him of the momentous choices ahead. After a quick breakfast, he stood in front of the mirror, questioning the reflection looking back at him. Who was this man staring at him? Gone was the aimless spirit who faded into shadows. In his place stood someone yearning to emerge, ready to embrace new beginnings. He felt the weight of his past pushing against him, but now it seemed surmountable, a mere bump in the road he could drive over. With each passing hour, Jack found himself anxiously scrutinizing the clock, his mind racing between the dual appointments ahead. The viewing and the coffee meeting were glimmers of hope glittering in his view. But alongside that excitement, a nagging sense of vulnerability began to seep in. What if he faltered? What if he revealed too much or nothing at all? His thoughts wandered to the coffee shop, a safe haven wrapped in the aroma of fresh brew and the warmth of laughter echoing through the air. He wasn't just going there to meet a friend, he was going to reveal parts of himself he had kept dormant for too long. That realization clawed at him. Could he truly navigate that treacherous emotional terrain, built from years of fading connections? He shook off the pessimistic thoughts. Before he could delve deeper into that mess, he glanced at his watch. There was no time to dwell. He needed to prepare for the rental viewing. As he traveled toward the new rental, the scenery shifted from familiar streets to places that echoed potential. With every mile he passed, he envisioned himself transforming the walls of a new home into a sanctuary. When he arrived at the apartment, his heart raced in earnest, each beat reverberating with the fear of rejection. The landlord met him with a warm smile, cutting through the initial awkwardness with ease. As they walked through the space, Jack took in every detail, imagining how he would furnish the living room, cook in the kitchen, even anchor his life into this new environment. But as stimulating as it was, doubt crept into the corners of his mind. Could he really afford it? The question echoed his own financial limitations, but it struck deeper. Could he afford to invest in himself? The reality loomed large. This wasn't just a new apartment, it was a chance to claim his agency, to establish a foundation for his present and future. The viewing concluded with a vague sense of hope. He thanked the landlord, but doubt shadowed his confidence as he drove away. Why was it so hard to embrace possibility? Why did a simple decision feel like an insurmountable wall? Jack arrived at the coffee shop earlier than planned. Sitting at a table, he watched the world go by, feeling the pulse of life around him. He rehearsed conversations in his mind, light banter followed by deeper topics, yet they all hinged on one nerve-wracking question: could he be authentic? Minutes ticked by, and each one deepened his anxiety. What if they talked about his past? What if he was still perceived as that boy who lost connections? He wrestled with darker thoughts, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. Was he tearing apart portions of himself for fear of exposing too much, or not enough? And then an unexpected calm washed over him. Jack realized that he had the power to rewrite his narrative. He wasn't bound by what had been, but rather, he could choose who he wanted to be. He drew in a breath, resolving to step into his truth regardless of the outcome. As his friend arrived, a smile lighting up her face, Jack felt the gravity of the moment deepening. In her eyes, he saw potential acceptance, a reflection of his own willingness to be vulnerable. He had a chance to reshape the connection, to foster a relationship from the ashes of the past. "Hey, it's good to see you," she greeted, and something shifted in him, hope mixed with the lingering fear of failure. Both emotions coalesced, urging him to seize the moment boldly. But what he didn't realize was how this encounter might truly challenge him. He felt a shiver of apprehension laced with excitement as he prepared to unravel layers of his past while forging paths toward a renewed friendship. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispered, today could be the day everything changed. Would it be the catalyst for an unexpected reunion, or could it shatter the thinly built walls he had constructed around his heart? Jack took a deep breath as his friend settled across from him. He could sense the underlying current of vulnerability coursing through their long-forgotten connection, a bridge waiting to be rebuilt. "So, how have you been?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with genuine curiosity. Her question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. He faltered, his mind racing. Here, in this small coffee shop that smelled of warm pastries and churning espresso, was his opportunity to reintroduce the person he'd always wanted to be. But a more primitive fear took hold. What if he still did not measure up to her expectations? "I'm doing okay," he said, awareness of his own hesitance tightening his throat. His voice barely conveyed confidence as he resumed eye contact. Jack was no longer that boy flipping through pages of his life aimlessly, yet a question nagged at him. What if he still exuded the same insecurities that had haunted him for years? "Okay is a start," she smiled, sensing the underlying tension. With that simple acknowledgement, a sliver of hope crackled inside him. What if he could shift the narrative? To rewrite it not merely for her, but for himself? He pushed his fears aside. Today was about honesty, no matter how raw. "Actually, I've been trying to make some changes in my life. Like looking to move into a new place," he began. The revelation slipped out more easily than he anticipated. Perhaps it was the warmth of the shop, or perhaps it was the essence of her support, but as he spoke, he noticed his walls shifting, exposing crack after crack. "That's great. A new place? Are you excited?" she inquired, leaning in, her genuine interest drenching him in a sense of safety. There it was. Excitement. The slippery thing he had so long shoved into the attic of his mind, the idea that there could indeed be room for enthusiasm amid the chaos of past failures. "Yeah, I am. It feels like a second chance." His pulse quickened with each word, the realization that change was possible radiating through him. For a moment, Jack felt buoyant. The weight of the past seemed less burdensome, as he could suddenly visualize stepping into a brighter future facing challenges he once considered daunting. But just as quickly, a chill of anxiety washed over him. "What if it's just another mistake?" he half mumbled, a whisper of doubt seeping into the moment. He didn't want to retreat back into the shadows. His walls had taken time to build, and today was not the day to crumble. "Listen," she said firmly, her gaze locking onto his with an intensity that commanded attention. "You can't let fear create a prison out of hope. That new place, it's a symbol, a step towards your future." Her words struck him, reverberating through his chest like the twang of a guitar string, aching yet refreshingly liberating. For the first time, he sensed the depth of his own longing, to not only step outside his comfort zone but to tear it down completely. Maybe it was not about getting it perfect, but about learning to navigate the journey. "You're right," he breathed, feeling the tide of change swell inside him. "I can't anchor my worth to my mistakes." It was a nascent realization, one laden with both power and vulnerability. He was dismantling a narrative that had too long defined him, allowing light to seep through the cracks. As he leaned forward, a newfound resolve flowed through him. He had come to this cafe hoping to reconnect with a friend, yet what he discovered was an awakening to his own potential. The past might whisper echoes of doubt, yet he had the power to shout back with affirmation. With thoughts racing, Jack reimagined the conversations ahead, not only with this friend but within himself. He began to see not just corridors leading to memories gone by, but routes that curved toward possibilities, blooming sweetly in the present. Yet, just as he felt invigorated by this breakthrough, a sinking thought rooted itself in his mind. An unexpected confrontation loomed ahead. The landlord's final decision still hung in the air. Would he face rejection? Would the landlord see him as simply another fleeting face, or could he outline a story of determination that might change everything once again? The uncertainty churned as he caught her eye, that flicker of shared understanding igniting a flame of courage within him. Today had changed him, yes, but as he prepared to step into potential interaction with the landlord, he could not shake the feeling that the real test had just begun. Would he embrace the challenge ahead, risking further disappointment? Jack's heart raced, the moment of truth awaited him. Would he reclaim his narrative and step boldly into the unknown? The coffee shop buzzed around Jack, a backdrop to the mental storm brewing within him. As he left, he could still feel the warmth of his friend's encouragement wrapped around him like a protective cloak. The walk to his apartment was short, but every step felt heavier as he dove deeper into his own thoughts. What was supposed to be a small step toward change amplified into a tidal wave of potential anxieties. Crossing the sidewalk, he paused at the entrance of his current apartment building, faded, gritty, and all too familiar in its oppressive comfort. This place had held him captive, but now it felt like a ghost. Each creak of the weathered floorboards was a whisper of self-doubt, and every peeling paint chip was an echo of missed chances. If he was to take this leap, then what awaited on the other side was still terribly unclear. Entering the structure, Jack glanced at the posted for rent notice. It seemed to mock him with its promise of something better. Could he really face the landlord? In his heart, he could feel a pulse of defiance swelling, pushing against the constriction of fear that had previously confined him. With a set jaw, he climbed the stairs to the front desk. Memories of previous encounters with the landlord, fraught with anxiety over rent and possibility of eviction, flashed through his mind. Today, those memories resided far behind his determination. He was armed with new convictions, ready to face what lay ahead. Yet, he grappled with the nagging question: was it enough? Mr. Baker. The landlord's voice boomed from behind his desk, thick with authority. Jack's pulse quickened. There he sat, robed in the guise of clinical indifference, yet Jack knew the power dynamics of this moment were changing. He had to push back against whatever misconceptions lingered in the landlord's mind. "Hi, Mr. Baker," Jack replied, trying to infuse confidence into his wavering tone. "I wanted to discuss the possibility of moving out." Even to his own ears, the words sounded stronger, braver. "Moving out? So soon? You realize I have other prospects interested in your unit," Mr. Baker said with a calculating smile that twisted Jack's stomach. The flavor of rejection lingered in the air, waiting to snatch at the small piece of courage he had mustered. "I understand," Jack responded, forcing the anxiety deeper within him. "But I believe I've found a place that works better for my needs. I'm looking to step into a new chapter of my life, a fresh start." The landlord raised an eyebrow, intrigued but still skeptical. Jack felt this was his moment, time to articulate his newfound resolve, time to reject the passive voice of his past insecurities. "I've been re-evaluating my life and my goals. I know I can find something more aligned with who I truly am." Silence hung between them, heavy with tension. Mr. Baker folded his arms, recasting Jack under a perceptive scanning gaze. The seconds stretched unnaturally, and Jack's heart raced against the urge to retreat. What if he reframed his stance not as a tenant seeking landlord approval, but as someone demanding respect? "Are you saying you can afford better?" Mr. Baker questioned, a flicker of incredulity dancing in his eyes. "Yes," Jack asserted, surging with adrenaline. Words fell from his lips, and he felt liberated, exposing the truth, the corners of his world expanding, igniting a flicker of pride in his chest. "I might have failed before, but those failures are not definitive. They're stepping stones toward growth. In my next place, I want to nurture that growth instead of fitting into past confines." Gradually, Mr. Baker's face shifted from skepticism to something else, a spark of recognition, perhaps. Jack's heartbeat painted the ambience in strokes of hope, suspended in the possibility of validation. This new Jack was standing in stark contrast to the boy who shrank back in muted disappointment. The potential unpredictability of a landlord's judgment still loomed, but so too did a swift current of change. As their conversation drew to a close, the landlord's eyes softened marginally, signaling at least a glimmer of respect, and the tension that had clouded Jack's mind began to lift with each word exchanged. Yet just before leaving, a burning question lingered at the forefront of his mind: was he truly ready to embrace the life of the brave, or would the ghosts of his past tether him once more? With fresh resolve fueling his steps, Jack exited the building. The sun glimmered against the horizon, warming the skin on his arms. But the clarity of his next challenge awaited, and he wondered whether, for every new step he took, he could truly stand grounded amidst the chaos of transformation. The echo of his past still lured at his heels, but this time, he felt a pull to move forward. Would he rise, or would he once again backslide into doubt? With the future stretching out before him, Jack realized he still had one crucial question left to answer, a question that knocked fiercely against the doors of his determination: could he reconcile the man he'd been with the man he aspired to become? Fresh air greeted Jack as he stepped into the world outside Mr. Baker's office, but the warmth of the sun did little to dispel the shadows of doubt lurking in the back of his mind. He felt adrenaline coursing through him, a tangible reminder of his earlier resolve. Yet beneath that energy remained a thread of unease, one that suggested determination alone wouldn't suffice. It was one thing to visualize a change, embracing it fully was an entirely different beast. As he ambled down the street, a familiar coffee shop caught his eye. It felt fitting to return to that space of encouragement, a hub where he could reconnect with his newfound purpose. The door chimed softly as he entered, the scent of freshly brewed coffee wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. He spotted a quiet corner table and made his way there, his mind racing ahead to the steps required in this new chapter. Pulling out his laptop, Jack's fingers hovered over the keys as uncertainty gripped him. His goal was to craft a plan specifically, a roadmap that would chart his path from uncertainty to the life he envisioned. However, there was a roadblock: where to start? He decided to outline his aspirations, dissecting his thoughts into actionable components. With each tap of the keys, he began to outline his goals. It felt like a meticulous excavation of his own psyche, revealing not just desires but also fears. Under personal growth, he wrote down continuing education and building a social network. Under professional development, career advancement and honing skills emerged. Yet with every objective noted, he couldn't help but feel an unsettling weight. Would he be able to see this through when confronted with old habits and fears? As he sipped his coffee, Jack recalled the conversations he had shared with his friend, who had urged him to summon clarity amid the chaos. He remembered something important: to foster accountability, he needed to confide in someone about his plans. This time, he would reach beyond the confines of his comfort zone and actively seek a mentor. Jack's heart raced at the thought, an electric mix of fear and excitement coursing through him. The prospect of discussing his vulnerabilities with a seasoned professional felt both daunting and liberating. He envisioned the kind of mentor he sought, someone who could guide him through the turbulent waters of self-discovery, somebody who understood both the weight of ambition and the gravity of self-doubt. Determined, he opened his email and began drafting a message to an old professor, someone he had always admired for their mentorship. Would they remember him? Would they be willing to carve out time for a former student? The soft patter of rain began outside, intertwining with the frantic rhythm of his typing. Jack paused, allowing the sound to ground him. The uncertainty was tangible, yet it echoed the complexity of life itself, always in flux, always challenging. Finally, with a deep breath, he hit send, the digital message leaving a trail of vulnerability behind it. Suddenly, he felt lighter, as if lifting a weight he hadn't realized he was carrying. It wasn't resolution, but the first step toward a more profound transformation, a recognition that seeking support wasn't a sign of weakness, but a strategic move toward personal growth. With adrenaline fading but clarity sharpening, Jack took a deep breath and closed his laptop. Now the next leap awaited, the return to Mr. Baker to finalize his plans for moving out. The tension of past interactions surged forth in his memory, yet he could feel a shift within himself. This time would be different. As he stood up to leave, a thought struck him: what if, upon facing the landlord again, he could negotiate not just for a move out but for a recommendation, closing another chapter in the pursuit of rebuilding his life? Each step felt electrifying. Could he turn this small confrontation into yet another opportunity for growth? The moment of truth was near, and he already felt the tug of change pulling at him. The ghosts of his past were still there, but he could finally see a path illuminated ahead. He needed to brace himself for the confrontation ahead. What awaited him when he returned to the landlord? Would it mark another step towards liberation, or would he find himself ensnared once more? Jack stood outside the Starbucks, chest tight with anticipation and the residual remnants of anxiety. He checked his watch. It was time. Today wasn't just about confronting Mr. Baker again. Today was about seizing both opportunity and accountability, a chance to rewrite his narrative once and for all. He stepped inside, the comforting hum of conversation surrounding him. It felt like a different world, filled with possibilities instead of constraints. Jack ordered a drink, its warmth serving as a reminder that he could create soothing moments for himself, even among the tumult. When he arrived at Mr. Baker's office, he squared his shoulders and entered. The landlord looked up, his demeanor mirroring the stern authority Jack had experienced before. Yet today, something shifted within Jack, a quiet resolve anchored deep in his bones. Instead of approaching with trepidation, he would stand tall, prepared to advocate for himself, a far cry from the boy the landlord once viewed as a mere tenant. "Good afternoon, Mr. Baker. I've come back to discuss my move out," Jack began, his voice steady. With each word, he felt both excited and empowered, the nerves within him transforming into anticipation. "Thought you might reconsider," Mr. Baker replied, browsing the paperwork on his desk with a disinterested air. "You've got a good spot here, Jack." "Actually, I've thought about it quite a bit. I am ready to move on," Jack replied, digging deeper into his newfound confidence. "I'm trying for a fresh start. I want to take control of my life and my path forward." The admission felt liberating. It unveiled layers of strength he had been desperately trying to access. "Your lease still has some time left. Is that what you came here to discuss?" Mr. Baker's brows knit together suspiciously. "No. I want to talk about a mutual release of that lease," Jack asserted, his voice steady but fervent. "You know, I think it's best for both of us fresh opportunities, new beginnings, right?" It wasn't just about moving out. It was about claiming his life. Mr. Baker fell silent, considering. The longer the pause stretched, the louder Jack's heart raced. Had he overstepped? Was he making a huge mistake? "What do you want to do about your remaining balance?" "Most tenants just want to drag this out," Mr. Baker said slowly, assessing him more carefully this time. "I'm willing to settle. It's important to me to leave on good terms," Jack replied, fully prepared to negotiate. "If it means moving toward a place that can support my growth, I think it's worth it." He realized in that moment that he was advocating not just for a landlord but for himself, for the man he aimed to be, a builder of bridges, not walls. The poignant silence in the room began to crack like ice under the midday sun. Jack could sense a shift not just in Mr. Baker's mannerisms, but within himself. He was speaking and standing up for his needs instead of deferring to uncertainty or apprehension. "All right, Jack. I'll let you out of the lease early. Just need a bit of paperwork signed, and we can settle on the rest." "But you've got some responsibilities here still," Mr. Baker replied, his tone relaxed, almost amiable now. "Thank you," Jack breathed in disbelief, gratitude welling in his chest. The weight of uncertainty that had loomed over him for so long lifted, replaced by a warmth of relief that embraced him like an old friend. By the time Jack left Mr. Baker's office, he felt a palpable difference. He was no longer chained to a past filled with regret and uncertainty. He'd taken a risk and it had paid off. What's next? He wondered, excitement bubbling within him. As he dialed his friend's number on the way home, he felt the anticipation of regaining control over his life infuse him with the courage to share his victories. Who better to document this journey of transformation than the very person who had helped him see it in the first place? When she picked up, her warm, inviting voice wrapped around him. "Hey! I was just thinking about you. How did it go with the landlord?" Jack smiled, words spilling out like a confession. "I let him know I'm moving out, and he agreed to it, even settled on the remainder of the lease. It felt so good to finally take control, the first step in this new direction." "Wow, that's amazing. I knew you could do it." She responded with palpable enthusiasm. "I think it was more about stepping into who I can be rather than fearing who I was," Jack shared, acknowledging to himself that this journey of growth began with honest communication. He realized the journey hadn't just belonged to him as an individual but had involved a budding relationship rooted in shared vulnerability. With every word exchanged, the narrative he had once felt stuck in slowly morphed into something rich and transformative. I'm also drafting a plan for my next steps and exploring potential mentorship, he added, confidence simmering, anticipation brimming. See? You're one step closer, she cheered, her joy infectious. The rest of the conversation melted into uncharted territory, an enriched connection shining through reminders of shared empathy. They discussed dreams, fears, and what it really meant to elevate one's life. For Jack, what had begun as an unsettling confrontation had turned into a purposeful dialogue resonating with strength. As the day waned and the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack sat back and embraced the warmth of fulfillment blooming in his heart. Looking out at the evening sky, he understood he was no longer a shadow of his past, but a creator of new futures. Finally, he had achieved not just liberation from his landlord, but a reclamation of his identity. In stepping out from behind walls, he could confidently walk toward a spectrum of possibilities. Tomorrow would bear fresh challenges, yes, but with each step taken upward, he stood justified. His journey was grounded in self-advocacy and a commitment to growth. Jack knew he was ready to explore connection, to dare vulnerability, and to discover the wonder of becoming someone deserving of the future he aspired to achieve. As he reflected on what lay ahead, he felt a swell of purpose rising within him, ready to conquer the next chapter of his life boldly. Don't wait any longer, this is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that unfold just like this one. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. Share your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this resolution. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories recognize the importance of supporting this channel through your actions today.